Welcome to TypeScript FM, the friendly podcast for TypeScript developers where we bring you news, updates, and interviews from the community with plenty of tomfoolery sprinkled in. I'm your host, Kamran Ayub, and I'm joined by my co-host and best bud, Eric Onerheim. Together, we're the two TypeScript fools. Welcome to the show.
Welcome to the show. Welcome to the show.
Welcome to another TypeScript FM After Dark. We're recording at night.
Yes.
Once again.
Again, life gets in the way. So we are recording in the almost wee hours. Not quite wee hours.
You weren't in your natural habitat today, were you? You were working somewhere else?
I was at my mom's helping with some chores. And moving some heavy things around it. We just got like below freezing this week. So suddenly all of the yard work becomes like extremely urgent.
Yeah, like all the leaves, every single leaf dropped like on Sunday. Yeah. Bam. Just like our backyard is full of leaves now.
Yeah, ours too. Yeah. So I was helping my mom out. Her insurance company was like, oh, if you install security cameras, we'll give you a deal on insurance. So I was out there. Doing some hardware.
Hopefully not cloud-connected security cameras.
No, they are, but what are you going to do?
Yeah. I suppose for your mother, I don't want to do that. Like,
no, I basically am so paranoid.
Yep.
And like, there was that horror story, I forget where, but like where randos were connecting to baby cams and talking to your kids.
Oh yeah, love that.
Yeah, not great.
Nightmare scenario.
No, so I was like, well, I know that people like me make this software, so I'm like, I don't trust me to make secure baby cam software, so I'm going to...
And especially because all the baby cam software is powered by NPM packages, which are susceptible to supply chain attacks, and the malicious actors can get into your is equals NPM package and then take over your baby cam.
Yeah. Also, these baby cams don't cost enough for them to care about security.
So, fun fact, one of my top blog posts of all time on my blog, on my website, is my Raspberry Pi baby cam because it's local only, and you can just hook up PiCam, which is a software that uses the Raspberry Pi camera, and you can just set it up as a HLS stream. And so you can connect to it with like VLC or whatever on your phone to your Raspberry Pi, and you got your baby cam. And that's what I did for 5 years to monitor my kids.
That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah. We did Friendsgiving this weekend, and that was a lot of fun. We were there.
Yeah.
I haven't seen you in person so long.
Although it was funny because I think I saw you for a grand total of 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. The kids were going wild. They
were running outside.
There were a lot of youths.
Yep.
They were destroying our friend's house.
It's so nice of them to host.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun. It was a lot of food. I basically subsisted on dip and dessert. Like, I didn't actually eat real human food.
The buffalo chicken dip that you make is so amazing. It's so good. You got to link me the recipe, and I will put it in the show notes.
I'll put it in here. Yeah, it's
cool.
Here's the secret. It's mostly cream cheese. It's mostly cream cheese,
but it's so good.
It is so good. I could subsist on it.
Yeah, don't eat it every day or every week or even every month.
I love that stuff.
Well, after Friendsgiving, I've just been working and finishing up my MCP course.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm always like, I wish that I could talk about the nuances a lot more than I have the ability to. Like, this should probably be a 4-hour course, but it's 1 hour and a half. But I think it's still a pretty compelling demo. The end demo is me going through planning time off, seeing like, here's my calendar, here's the work calendar, help me schedule a optimal 3 to 4 day weekend. And it plans a 9-day vacation using like 2 company holidays and a weekend and only like 2.5 personal days. And that's what the final demo is. And then I can request time off immediately with that. And it spits out the request ID success.
This is software of value to me.
Right. So that's kind of like that's why I designed it this way, because I remember doing time off planning at work, and it was always a chore.
Yeah. Cool. That's really dope. I'm into that.
I hope it's compelling for people. I try to make it, kind of enterprisey. So
awesome.
If you're interested in all that, I'll let you know when it drops.
It's time for the news of November 3rd. Let's get into it.
Welcome to November, by the way.
Yeah. Welcome to November. Time marches forward.
Getting snowy out there.
And cold.
Hey, I've got some housekeeping. Are you a fan of YouTube? Yes, you are, Eric.
Yeah, I know that's actually my primary media consumption is YouTube.
Yeah. So I don't think you're alone. And we've gotten feedback of, hey, can we listen to the podcast on YouTube? And the answer so far has always been, it's extra work to publish video to YouTube. But they also said, I don't care if it's audio only. As long as I can get it on YouTube, I'm happy. So I looked into it, and it turns out YouTube has an RSS feed podcast ingest feature. So we enabled that, and Eric did all the verification for it, jumped through all the hoops for you, and we now have our TypeScript FM YouTube channel publishes a podcast playlist now that you can subscribe to on YouTube Music. You can also just subscribe to the YouTube channel. I think I don't use YouTube Music. I assume you just subscribe to the channel and things happen. But you can now look for the podcast on there. New episodes will drop. You'll get notified. It'll be published automatically, and it just uses the show art or the episode art, if it exists, as the graphics for the video. And so now I'm thinking maybe the next step, maybe we'll do this in 2026. We'll maybe start doing per episode show art if I can kind of optimize that process.
Maybe some visuals.
Yeah, something.
We'll maybe we'll throw in that Minecraft person jumping around on a loop. No, I don't think we'll do that, but yeah, something interesting to look at.
But for now, it will be audio only. So no promises on anything visual, because that is a lot of extra effort. But we do have some things cooking for 2026, but We'll wait until those things are more final to talk more about that. But yeah, go check out the YouTube now. Obviously put a link in the show notes, but on our website on TypeScript.fm, there should be a link to subscribe on YouTube, and you can go check it out.
Yay. I have some TSGo news. There's not a whole lot to report, but there's been a lot of work in progress on the LSP and JSDoc support, so that's cool. And TSE init is being ported soon.
Yes, that was on the roadmap of not being done yet, and I just spotted the PR in the wild. So maybe it'll be merged this week or next week, but that'll be coming. That'll be coming soon.
Coming soon, TM.
Yeah, we've got a Node PSA. Eric didn't even know this, but I submitted a PR to Excalibur to update our Node version to 24, because 24 is now the active LTS. This is their codename Krypton. Node 24 is now transitioning into long-term support, and it will continue to receive updates through to the end of April 2028. So we have at least 2-ish years until we need to update again.
Yeah, no, this is cool. They also have the coolest code name. I was like, what other Superman lore can we throw in here? Like, is the code name General Zod, or what do we got? What can I do in here?
Yep, exactly. We already reported on TypeScript's #1 language on GitHub from Octaverse report last week, but they did publish a follow-up blog post with an interview, or maybe more of like a featurette, with Anders, the lead architect of TypeScript, the creator of TypeScript, also the creator of C#. Did he say anything cool in there? I'm sure he said lots of cool things, but was there something that jumped out to you?
I think he has extremely salient takes on why TypeScript is doing as well as it is doing, and like why it kind of captured the zeitgeist. I would actually just watch the video. I think it's a fantastic conversation, and he's always so humble, and it's just a lovely conversation about how things just have taken off.
Isn't it funny? One of their quotable quotes from the interview was that he said, "When we started the project, I figured if we got 25% of the JavaScript community interested, that'd be a win. But now, seeing how many people rely on it every day, I'm floored. The whole team is." And I think that's true.
Yeah, and I think they also talk about how the 10x, you can't ignore 10x. the 10x performance of the Go port. So you're like, oh, okay, well, it's hard to ignore 10x.
Yeah, I guess we better look into this.
Yeah.
All right, meta framework news. Nuxt just came out with Nuxt Image V2. The highlight here is that it's now fully TypeScript compatible. So they've got full TypeScript support for everything with Nuxt Image now. So you can kind of look at the blog post. They've got better types now. They've got a better way to define the config for it, so that they have a type-safe configuration now. If you create your own custom providers to get images, you can use the new define provider API, and that generates the types for you, so you get fully typed modifiers, etc. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Very cool. Next up, we have a security PSA. Womp womp. A remote code execution vulnerability has been found in the React Native CLI that lets folks attack local dev servers. Part of the problem is dev servers are launching by default to all network interfaces. So they bind to the 0.0.0.0 octet instead of like localhost, where it only is resolved locally. It allows folks to do on a Windows, they can spawn a shell and do stuff and do arbitrary command execution on your machine.
Whatever they want.
Yeah, there's a open URL HTTP endpoint that takes a URL parameter and passes it directly to the open function in the open npm package, which just does a spawn like smd /c call. So ouch.
Yep. I think if you want some takeaways here, probably just search for DNS rebinding attacks and host filtering. Those are two things that you want to, one thing you want to prevent, the other thing you want to do. You want to try to filter hosts on your local server, because you can get bitten by this too. If you do like app.listen and you give it 0.0.0.0, that is literally listening on all IP addresses and all interfaces on your local host. So it's much better to do like a host binding, like localhost, because that will make sure that it only responds to localhost and not like random DNS entry that's pointed at your IP address.
That's right. All right. Should we move on to community highlights?
Yeah. What's new in the community?
Well, we might have said this already, but turns out TypeScript is the most used language on GitHub.
Yes.
which is not surprising to me and not to you, I don't think, because we kind of like at the beginning of this show, we were like, I think this is like poised to have a rapid explosion in growth.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, this article, why everyone is using TypeScript now, kind of highlights exactly our thinking on this, on why TypeScript has kind of exploded in growth. And I think as, for better or for worse, there is this kind of, positive feedback loop with LLMs of, hey, LLMs are really good at using structured text. Types, specifically TypeScript, is structured types. They work really well together. The other neat thing is like there's also this built-in aspect of like you can run a check as well. So like there's a type check, which lets you know if it's BS or not, what's being output by an LLM.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in fact, they even cited a 2025 study, and they linked to the study, that found that 94% of errors generated by LLMs in code are type-related. So you can imagine that if you are able to run a TypeScript type check, the compiler to before an agent makes changes to the code or before a model returns code to the user, if you can type check it, then you can eliminate a lot of errors.
And I think the thing that kind of maybe got the snowball going is it kind of has become the de facto like default template for a lot of frameworks.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of people when they're doing like the new project template just get the TypeScript stuff out of the box by default.
Yep. And I also think, at least for AI development in particular, Vercel's AI SDK is like kind of the de facto. Like people are building on top of the AI SDK, and that's all TypeScript. So I think people are just kind of entering the field, just using TypeScript to build AI stuff, and that's leading to a pretty big explosion.
It's not all sunshine and roses, though. Our next article, Why TypeScript Won't Save You.
That's right.
TypeScript won't save you from yourself.
Nope. That's right. So this is by Christian Ekram. What does Christian say about TypeScript? Why won't it save me?
Well, there is this illusion of safety. While TypeScript is an incredible tool, it does catch a lot of bugs, makes refactoring safer, and like the jump to definition, like a lot of productivity. There's just a lot of escape hatches. So like one of the, classic any, and now the classic as known as type, I can just be like, TypeScript nowadays is like, okay, well, I'm gonna maybe say like, maybe don't do as any, but now you can do like, well, okay, you just gave me another step to write as unknown as other type.
I think the compelling example that they show is one where you would not think that TypeScript would let you shoot yourself in the foot, but it does. And the example that he gives is a get user function that fetches from an API. When you call response.json and then you add an explicit return type. So you're adding an explicit return type to the function that says, give me a promise of user back. But response.json does not guarantee that that is going to come back as a user. Could be null, could be an error. TypeScript will not throw. It doesn't check this.
Yeah, this is probably where you want like runtime validation, like a Zod or like an archetype.
Yes. So he does go into like the boundary problem. And this is what I agree with. Every time data enters your system from an API, user input, local storage, URL parameters, it's untrusted. TypeScript cannot verify it. The types that you assign are just wishful thinking until you actually validate. That is 100% totally agree with.
It would be kind of nice to have like maybe even a flag where you could be like, hey, this is a boundary. I mean, there's probably too many boundaries to do this, but this is like maybe the network boundary is an obvious one to like, hey, don't assume a type here.
Yep. It's interesting because he's comparing it to Elm, and we've talked about Elm a little bit before. Elm is really cool in that it enforces, like you can't actually run into runtime errors with Elm because it enforces it in its architecture. So he goes into some of the examples of here's what this would look like in Elm and what it does. Unfortunately, Elm is not the number one most used language on GitHub. So we have to deal with TypeScript. So I think there's some practical takeaways here, which is basically validate everywhere. But pay attention to the boundaries. So use libraries like Zod or Valabot or maybe even Archetype. Now, Archetype goes a step further because it does implement runtime types, or it tries to. So it gives you a little bit more of an insurance policy at the boundaries. So I think it's just something that we need to really remember is that all the TypeScript types disappear at runtime. They just evaporate. They're gone. And so what you're left with is like, is runtime true? Like, is that the source of truth? Like, are you validating that the data that you are working with is actually what you think it is? And I think that that's where people can get frustrated with TypeScript, is when people don't think about the boundaries and they don't do validation. And then at runtime, you're like, oh my God, I thought that it was this type, but for some reason we didn't think about that edge case, and it's totally not that type. And so the types lied to me. So I think testing, add tests for whatever you're doing is one thing you want to do. And then second, boundary testing, or boundary validation, make sure that you're validating stuff at the boundaries. That's what I always worked on with my teams when we were doing mentoring and stuff with product teams. It's like, when the data comes back from the API, at that point, you need to make sure that past that point, it is exactly what it should be. Like, the types need to be accurate after that. So like, we always would enforce validation at that boundary so that the SDKs were passing the right data, throughout the rest of the application. Because as soon as there's a problem at that top level, at that boundary, it's going to cascade throughout your entire application.
Yeah. Another thing that this brings to mind is our conversation with Laurent when we were talking about security, and types are not a security feature. in TypeScript. So users are another boundary that you need to guard against because they can give you things that are the shape plus plus.
Yep. Yep.
So it's also important to validate that the thing you got is exactly the thing that you wanted and not the thing you wanted. Plus, I threw some extra in there just for extra seasoning to attack your API.
That's right. So, I mean, Christian says that he loves TypeScript, and we do too, obviously, but you also have to you can't just outsource all of your validation and, it works in the compiler, so it'll work at runtime. You do have to think about edge cases. You do have to think about boundaries. So just remember, keep that in mind.
Awesome.
Hey, Eric, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
What do flash floods and TypeScript have in common?
I have no idea.
Well, what they have in common is a data visualization library called Kepler.gl. It's an open source TypeScript library for GPU rendering of geospatial data, and David A. Lee on Blue Sky has been using it to try and detect flash floods in New York City using the data that is available on that so that you can visualize when there might be a flash flood warning or an issue. And so you can help people and warn them before it becomes a problem.
Yeah, definitely go check out Kepler GL and the Blue Sky post about this, but the visualizations that they produce are absolutely gorgeous. So if you're like making a pitch or you're doing something with maps and like data about maps, this is absolutely gorgeous stuff. Like there's like, you got heat maps here, you got point clouds, you got, GeoJSON, which if you've ever looked at like those political maps where they like the color in the counties, it looks like that. They have 3D buildings that you can like Google Street View kind of like, or Google Maps style stuff. Very cool. Very cool stuff. I had no idea that this existed. Kepler GL.
Yep. Yeah. Go check that out.
Next up from the Node peeps, Node.js/Userland migrations. And we want to show them some love because this is awesome. This is how you handle breaking changes gracefully without requiring your users to go and like fix it themselves. This is a huge repository of code mods for Userland code when upgrading Node. So you can just run npx code mod at node.js/recipe, or you can use this as a template for your own things and make your own code mods for your own libraries when you're updating things, which I think I'm probably going to use.
Yeah. Do you want to give us like a 30-second overview of what a code mod is? Because I know people that have never heard of code mods or have used them.
Yeah, a code mod is roughly speaking, it's a bit of code that will go and take, all of your existing code base, figure out what, features are being removed or changed or whatever, deprecated, and move them into the new feature set in your, new version of your software. This is super nice. This is super nice to do to your users. It makes upgrading like real easy, especially if you're like an Angular or your big framework like that. I personally have taken advantage of the code mods to make migrations much easier.
Yeah. I think if people are looking for a solid example of this, one of the Node APIs that was deprecated was buffer.a to b and buffer.b to a. And if you run the code mod, it'll migrate buffer.b to a to buffer.from.toString base64, which is the new API. So if you have that all over your code base, the code mod will deterministically, this is not an AI tool, it'll deterministically read your code and change it for you. So it'll do the migration for you. And you can write these yourself. And you can certainly use AI tools to, write a code mod for you. In fact, I feel like that's a pretty good way to do it because, I've never written a code mod myself before, but I've used them and we used them at work to do migrations. So they're super neat. But the Node folks have also published the code mod registry, which is like an NPM, but just for code mods. And so you can filter by all the Node.js code mods that are available to like handle deprecations and things like that. But there are also other community code mods too. What else have you found on the World Wide Web?
There's a great post by, I believe it's pronounced Marc Dahmen, about building a sortable tree in vanilla TypeScript. And this is really nice looking. This is exactly kind of what I need, so I might just use it. There's an NPM package now too that he made called Sortable-tree, and you can just use it. But what's really interesting is he goes through kind of the thought process here of building this, and you can go and take a look at his source code that he put together. And this was an experiment for AutoMad, and it kind of just became a thing.
Yeah, so just reading through some of the features, it's written in plain TypeScript, so it's framework agnostic. It's vanilla TypeScript, DOM nodes, and events.
That's right.
It's got drag and drop sorting, foldable branches, optional confirmation when moving nodes around. It can persist state across page reloads. That's pretty sweet. It's also fully stylable. You can customize the icons, the node templates, and CSS, and there's almost no dependencies. He has some parentheses in here. Almost no dependencies. But that's pretty sweet. I mean, this is designed for like you're making a file tree view or like a navigation editor. Like this is really, really cool.
Yeah. I am probably just going to use this. I have a use case for this right now. Like literally right now in the editor stuff that we're playing around with. So I might just use this.
Yeah. npm install sortable-tree. There you go.
Super cool.
All right, next up, I spotted with my little eye on Blue Sky that Marco Ippolito submitted a PR to Marc type stripping as stable, and that got merged this past week. That doesn't mean it's going to be released. In fact, I don't know if that even means it's going to be released soon, but it is merged, so it will be released at some point. It's coming. So that will get rid of the experimental prefix for the type stripping flag. So that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, they have a pretty auspicious PR number too, 60600, which I don't know why my brain loves that, looking at that number so much, but it looks like to me it looks like a go.
Love it.
There's a really interesting blog post by Marek Honzal called "Immutable by Default: Practical TypeScript Patterns." That there's a fun little saying. There's like mutable state is okay, shared state is okay, shared mutable state is the devil. You never want shared mutable state. So most of our bugs are that like insidious logic bug. They're accidental through like quietly modifying state and having it do a thing that you didn't expect to do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there are things in TypeScript that you can do to give you some type level immutability promise. There's const that prevents rebinding, which pretty much everyone already uses.
Mm-hmm.
There's read-only, which prevents writes. This is actually super useful if you're returning arrays to prevent people from tampering with your arrays. Like that you return to be like, actually, this is just this is the slice of an internal array. You better not mess with it. And then there's also as const, which I use everywhere to turn literals into precise types.
Yeah, and if we, to use the term that the kids say, let's double click there on as const.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the examples that he has is doing as const on a string literal. And I don't know why, but this like made my brain explode. Like I feel like I've only used as const on like object literals, but not like string literals. But of course, that would make a lot of sense if you don't want people to mutate your string when it gets returned.
Yeah. Strings are like a weird value type. They're like a weird reference type with value semantics, which causes a lot of like hairiness to creep in to your programs. So using as const on the strings is very, very big. And he gives an interesting example too, where you can actually do as const on tag template literals to get even more guarantees. So like if you had a tag template literal, like where you were doing string replacement, you actually get a return type that is a tag template. So you can verify that any string shape matches the tag template, not just string, which is pretty slick.
Yeah. Talks about creating value tables. So you're basically creating one source of truth for like your different enums or different lists of things. If you want to create maps of types. So this is super useful if you want to migrate away from the enum keyword. You can change them into value tables and then create type unions for the different values and map them back and forth reliably without doing a whole bunch of magic strings.
One interesting usage here is that he uses the satisfies keyword liberally to validate that these types cover a type without losing that literal precision you get from asconst, because otherwise you'd have to be like, is it a string? But satisfies gives you like a deeper understanding of, does this thing actually cover the type that I'm interested in? It's pretty slick.
I feel like I learned more about like the use, like how useful satisfies can be, because I admit that I've only used it a few times since it's been introduced, and it can be kind of confusing, like when should I use satisfies? But the examples that he gives kind of really show you when it can be useful.
Mm-hmm. This is a great blog post. Suffice it to say, I got a lot out of it. You should read it.
Yep.
This is like, there's these subtle features that have been around for a little while now that I keep learning new ways to use them. And this is not how I was using this feature.
Yeah, I feel like this is a great substitute for our Secrets of the Handbook segment. So even though we're not doing one today, this is the blog post that is the Secrets of the Handbook. So go take a look at it.
Yeah, go take a look at it. It's extremely good. Next up on Library Watch, there is a new library from Snapchat called Valdi, which is a cross-platform UI framework that delivers native performance without sacrificing developer productivity. It is a TypeScript first, and it compiles directly to native views in iOS, Android, and macOS. So it's really reminds me of like a XAML kind of idea, but with like JSX style stuff.
Yeah, this is really neat. Like you said, it's very much like XAML, which is like the Microsoft flavor of this, but that's like XML, right? Like it's got more XML semantics, whereas this is like JSX semantics.
Yeah, and if you're curious, they have a link in here embedding Valdi into like UIKit or Android view hierarchies. So like they have a whole like, here, hey, now that you've done this, how do you actually go about doing this? And like taking the objectives, like getting the Objective-C counterpart out of this, or getting the Kotlin counterpart out of this. So it's really kind of a slick way to do things. It's really cool.
It's worth noting too that even though it's sort of like brand new, it has been used in Snap's production apps for the last 8 years. So they're calling it a beta, and they said that they're going to exit beta when we're happy with the developer experience, because they said like it needs more battle testing in the open source world, but they've been using it internally for 8 years to build all their apps. So Snapchat, obviously, but any of their other Snap apps.
Mm-hmm. Like it looks like they did their own like Flexbox like layout system.
Flexbox is the best box.
It is the best box. I think I like my boxes to flex. Honestly, I solved most of my problems with Flexbox.
Me too.
But yeah, it's a very Flexbox inspired design system. So check it out. I am probably going to also use this for a thing I'm doing. So that's why I put it in here.
Cool. What else you got?
Another one that was kind of neat is I'm always like fascinated by dependency injection. And there's a new library on the block called Izumi Chibi, which is a port of the DieStage dependency injection library from which popular thing? I forget already. Where did DieStage come from? Why am I losing my mind?
Scala?
Scala, that's right. It's from Scala.
I was going to ask, why is it named this? But it says right there in the description, it's a TypeScript re-implementation of some core concepts from Scala's Izumi project, DieStage, stage dependency injection library in particular.
And then there's a sibling project, Izumi Chibi -pi, which is, or excuse me, -py, which is the same but different, but for Python. Mm-hmm. But what's neat about this is how you can get Angular style dependency injection without needing to build a compiler. Which is kind of how the Angular CLI how the Angular app works, is they do this whole compile phase to do this dependency injection. As far as I know, maybe they're able to do more at runtime, but this is actually a pretty nice way of doing dependency injection. It's also super declarative. It's looks to be like low magic. There's also a lot of features for lifecycle management and conditional bindings. So if you really like your dependency injection fancy, it looks like this has you. You can do lots of stuff with your dependency injection here over maybe more simple, like singleton only dependency injection type scenarios.
It is worth mentioning that it does require experimental decorators to be turned on.
I was going to mention that. That's the only ding. Although I think in our current world order, that's kind of where we're at. We're kind of in this half in, half out with the decorators right now.
Yeah.
But it looks really cool, and I would definitely take a look at it. And heck, even if you didn't want to use it, I think it's a really great piece of inspiration if you wanted to go and take a look at implementing your own dependency injection. I know there's like Type DI, there's a few other smaller ones, but this one does appear to be like one of the most fully featured TypeScript dependency injection libraries out there. Now, that said, it is not battle tested. Expect dragons. Landmines and mileage may vary according to their README. It's certainly a very ambitious project and looks pretty awesome.
Cool. I came across something pretty neat. Back when I used to work on a very big site, we had a design system that we built internally. If you've ever worked with design systems, then you've probably also worked with design tokens, which is a way to do like theming. So it's basically like a way to do variable sharing in a script like TypeScript, but then inject those into the compiled CSS. So things like what's your color for your buttons, and you want to inherit from some other color, or you want to inherit, here's my color palette, and you want to inject those, and here's my dark theme palette, and here's my light theme palette, things like that. Design token engine should be able to do that for you. And a lot of design systems have their own engines. This one is called Tokiforge, and it's a cross-framework token and theming engine. So that means you can define your tokens once and use them in any framework or platform. So that's really cool. You can do runtime switching without rebuilding. So it doesn't just inject them into the completed or the built assets. You can actually, at runtime, you can switch the tokens out, which is really cool. And then it can also export to any format: CSS, SAS, or SCSS, JS, TS, or JSON. And of course, it's full TypeScript support out of the box, fully type safe. So I saw this on Reddit, so it's probably worth taking a peek at. It's 1.0, so looks really cool.
They works with any framework on their thing, and they mean it. They have a very long list. They have like vanilla, they have web components in Lit, they have Astro, Preact, Quick, Solid, Remix, Next, Angular, Svelte, Vue.
If you go take a look, actually, under the advanced features, it does have a lot of stuff like token versioning and deprecation, which is really neat. So you can version your tokens, and then you can deprecate them, and you can say like, here's what it's replaced by. And you can get like, here are my warnings, here are my active tokens. But another really interesting thing is that you can actually sync your Figma tokens to this library. And you can and you can compare them, and you can generate a report, which I've never used Figma tokens, so I can't really speak to that. But I know that Figma is huge in the design community. So if you're using Figma with your design system, maybe you want to take a look at this.
I'm going to send this to our people internally, because I didn't know about that feature, because I think that's going to be huge for them.
Yep. They've got analytics. They've got a token registry, so you can have multi-team token management. Whew. Yeah, this has a lot of stuff. That's cool. All right. The last thing to mention is a kind of new framework on the block that I came across on Blue Sky. It's called Mastro, and it's not .js, but it's .js or TS. It's the simplest web framework and site generator. It runs on Dino, Node.js, Bun, and in your browser as a VS Code extension. This is pretty cool. It's like a static site generator, kind of like 11t, but there's no client-side JavaScript until you manually add some. So you can create multi-page apps that load super fast. There's no bundler until you add one. Your code arrives in the browser exactly how you wrote it. There's like no magic image tags or A tags. It's all just referencing using vanilla HTTP, and they're not VC backed. So if you're interested, if you like that, then this might be for you. And there's no update treadmill. They're saying that we use web standards instead of relying on complex dependencies. There's no lock-in either. So it's only 700 lines of code. So you can fork it and do whatever you want. But if you take a look at the code snippet, it's a meta framework for JavaScript and TypeScript, but it has a very simple like API. You can export a get function from a server entry point, take in the web request, use their utilities to read markdown files and then translate that HTML to a response. And you can use, looks like it supports tag template literals instead of just like pure JSX. So you can give it like an HTML tag template literal and then use template substitution to create your templates and stuff. So this looks really neat if you want something very like essentially like super minimal, but still like really powerful to like do everything that you need to do. So this is really cool.
This is super slick. I love this. I love this so much. Yeah. I'm a fan. I'm gonna check this out. It really reminds me, and like like I'm picking up the same vibe as like 11T. Like if you've used 11T, is what I use for my personal blog. It has very similar vibes, although it looks like this is even less magical. Nice. All right, I got some cool links.
Ooh, hit me.
My first one is SyntaxFM. I'm a fan of the show, big time. But they've been doing this segment lately called CSS battles, where they like speed run, trying to like make pixel perfect CSS replications of like an image, and it's really fun. It's just a fun watch, and I've learned a lot about how to use box shadow and how to abuse CSS, and it's very entertaining, and it's just a fun watch. I recommend it. So go check out SyntaxFM's CSS battles. I think they even built their own like first party like code platform to make these CSS battles work, which I think is really funny. The other thing I've got is someone went pretty wild and built a whole like Beehive simulation into their wooden desk that they made. Like they made their own like hive wooden desk, and it has like LEDs that simulate bees and the queen in the colony, and it's trypophobia warning, lots of little holes if you couldn't guess, but it's like if you watch the video, it's absolutely just like mesmerizing. And he wrote a little Python program that does the actual like colony simulation, but it was awesome to watch. This gentleman spent a long time working on this desk, and I want one, but I imagine it would take me like 3 times as long or more or never. Yeah, but check it out. It's really cool.
So obviously I've been doing a bunch of MCP the past like 8 weeks. It's since September, diving really deep into it. And one of the recent This Week in Svelte episodes, they talked about their new Svelte MCP server for their docs. And I think this is one of it's a nice use case for MCP because we know that like models are usually out of date on training and stuff, and open source libraries or, libraries that change often need up-to-date information if people are trying to code in them. And I know that Mastro.ai also released like a documentation MCP server. It actually goes a step further where it can like teach you stuff. Like you can have it create tutorials for you to like walk through how to do stuff. So it's almost like a personal course instructor type of thing that's how they've designed it. Yeah, it's pretty sweet. And I haven't played with the Svelte MCP server yet, but they have a nice YouTube show where they talk about it. So I was going to check it out to see how they built it and maybe get some inspiration for maybe like an Excalibur MCP server eventually. All right. Well, that's everything for the week. I mean, what are your takeaways? There was like a lot of stuff.
We had a lot of stuff.
It's funny because there wasn't like a ton of news, but there was a lot of community stuff that we talked about today.
Yeah, I think I'll have to amend like Brendan Eich's always bet on JavaScript. I think now it's going to be always bet on TypeScript. That's going to be the new meme. Is we're going to have Wesley Snipes, and he's going to now be saying always bet on TypeScript. That's my new takeaway is, especially from like the node news that we got where 24 is going to have, in theory, 24X is going to have the new TypeScript, type stripping unflagged. I hope that's the case. In theory, that'll happen. TypeScript, the most used language on GitHub. There's this positive feedback loop between TypeScript and LLMs for like both like a reason I can like understand, and also like a reason like because it's structured like in a way that makes sense to the way that these models work,
Mm-hmm.
and also all the defaults. So always bet on TypeScript. That's my takeaway, is always bet on TypeScript. And there's just a lot of cool stuff coming out, like new stuff. And like, I'm always learning something new, especially with that blog post from Marek about immutable patterns in TypeScript, which I'm definitely going to be taking and leveraging those, especially that satisfies read-only business. That's cool.
That is cool. I think the thoughts that were sort of triggering for me when we were talking about why TypeScript won't save you, I think that there's an appetite in the community of runtime types, just like in general. Like, why can't we have our TypeScript cake and eat it too at runtime?
Mm-hmm.
And this goes back to this crazy prediction that I have that maybe eventually it'll be possible for us to see a TypeScript native runtime. Because if you had control over the runtime, you could have runtime types, right? So I don't think, and I've talked to you about this before, I don't think that it would be TypeScript as we know it today, but it would be a flavor of TypeScript. Like it might be a subset of it. It might be a restricted version of it. Can I have my TypeScript types at runtime, at compile time and runtime, and they match and it works? And some sort of magical runtime that doesn't exist yet.
I think you could, but it wouldn't be TypeScript anymore.
Right. That's why I keep saying, like, Dino is really well positioned for this. If they could just do that, if they could figure out the magic sauce to get it to work.
Yeah, the Dino folks should really connect with Oliver Medhurst, because I feel like there's some interesting synergy there. I think they already support TypeScript just out of the box in Porphyr, and that's already doing ahead of time JS compilation. They're saying the same thing here, right? Is it's a subset of TypeScript that is perhaps the same subset of JavaScript.
Yeah.
Any wild stuff that you can do in JavaScript, it's hard to do that as an ahead of time thing. But if you stayed to like maybe the Rails that most programs are written in, I think you probably could do it.
Yeah, I think the challenge with this whole idea that I'm proposing is that it doesn't take into account all the ecosystem like stickiness that's there, or like how can I bring my whatever React or Next.js application to this new magical runtime, whatever it might be called, and like have it work, So that's like the challenge with it, because if any part of it is using something that's not supported, then that's just not going to work. And so there needs to be a way to like bring the stuff that exists and have it work. Yeah, I don't know. This is above my pay grade. I just dream of the ideas, and really smart people go and implement them. So that's what we do here.
This is this is cool. This is the interesting news week. A lot of community stuff. I'm always learning something new.
That's why we do this. Hopefully listeners are learning something new too. That's the goal. All right. For now, we shall see you next week.
See you next week. Bye-bye.
Hi, everyone. This is Kamran. I just wanted to thank you for listening to the show, and we hope you enjoyed the episode. If you want to see the show notes, you can check your podcast player or go to TypeScript.fm, where you'll see a list of all the episodes. If you enjoyed the show, tell your friends, and please rate it on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, because that's how the show grows and gets discovered by more people. If you want to suggest news or a project that should be covered, or just want to say hi, email us at feedback@typescript.fm. If you want to follow us on social, we're both active on Blue Sky. I'm at Kamranicus.com, and Eric is at EricOnerheim.com. You can also follow the show directly at TypeScript.fm.